kitchen. So for this week's video tutorial, I just wanted to do something that was really fun and creative. So do you ever have that person who just asks for a small slice of cake and you need to bake them a birthday cake? Well, why not bake them a giant slice of cake? Okay, let's get started. So in order to make our cake, which is going to look like an individual slice of cake, I first baked this 11-inch round sponge cake, and this one is just around 2 centimeters in height, and I've just leveled this off. So all I want to do is just cut this into 5 individual pieces, which is going to be the different layers for our cake. So all I've done is create a template and just cut out one piece which has an angle of 72 degrees. So I'm just going to place that onto my cake, cut my 5 slices. Okay, so now that I have my 5 individual pieces, these will just all stack one on top of the other. So all I've got here is just a batch of chocolate buttercream. So I'm just gonna fill and crumb coat my cake. Those are all lined up, and I'm just going to put another coating of the buttercream all the way over the outside, and I'm just going to go in with my metal scraper and just make sure those edges are nice and flat, and we're creating that point at the front of our slice of cake. Okay, so once we're starting to get the shape of a slice of cake, I'm just going to pop this into the fridge just for that buttercream to firm up slightly. Okay, so once that cake has come out of the fridge and the buttercream has just gone slightly hard, I'm just going to put another very thin layer of buttercream just over the top and the sides just to smooth those off. Okay, so now that's been covered in my buttercream and we've got this cake wedge or triangle. I'm just going to pop this in the fridge just for around 10 minutes just so this hardens up slightly so we can start adding our detail. I've just got the first colour of fondant that I'm going to use here. Now I've just coloured this using ivory and a small amount of yellow just to give me a colour that represents a vanilla sponge cake. So all I'm going to do is just cover the front 2 sides. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just roll this out until it's large enough. Now I'm going to wrap this around and just trim it off. Leave the top and the back to be covered in a different colour. Okay, so once I have that rolled out, I'm just going to take my pizza cutter and just cut a long strip to run around the edge of the cake. I can then lay fondant on the edge of the cake and just pull that all the way around. Now I'm going to go in and just trim off the excess. I'm then just going to go in with my plastic smoothers and just smooth that against the cake. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is make this look like sponge cake. So I need to add some texture. So I've just got my modeling tool here. Now this one just has the point at one end and this little scoop at the other. So I'm going to use a combination of both ends. So to create that texture, I'm just going to first start with the larger of the scoop ends, and I'm just going to go in and create small dents all over that icing. And all I want to do is just make it look like the texture of a vanilla sponge cake. So you've got that nice crumbly appearance. So all I'm doing is just pushing the end into that cake. Okay, so once I've put the texture on both of the sides, I'm just going to go in with the pointed end of the tool and just create some small circles to make it look a little bit crumbly. So now this is looking a little bit more like a sponge cake. So for the filling of the cake and the cake itself, I want it to look like it's being filled with a pink buttercream, so you can see those layers seeping out as you've cut it. So I've just got this really pretty dark fuchsia pink. So I'm going to start with a ball of the pink and just roll this out into a long sausage shape, and I'm just going to use my fingers just to push into that, just to make some areas a little bit more bulbous than others. I'm then just going to use some edible glue, pick this up and just glue it to the cake with around 1.5 inch spacing between each layer. So here we have our cake filling just oozing out the side. And I'm just using the end of my paintbrush just to go in parts of that, just to push in to make it look more like it's starting to drip down. Okay, so just to finish off the sponge cake before we add the rest of the icing, I've just got some edible dust here. So we've just got a lighter buttermilk and also a slightly darker cream colour. So I'm just going to take a small amount of those two on my fluffy brush, and where we've got the area that is supposed to look like the vanilla sponge cake, I'm just going to go in and just add some different tones just so it looks like that cake has been baked. Okay, so there we have the sponge cake with the buttercream oozing out. So the next thing to do is just to put the pink on the top and the back, just to make that look like we've covered the cake in the same buttercream. Okay, so for the top and the back, I'm actually going to cover these in two separate pieces, because the last thing that I'm going to do is just to add some white over the top, just to look like we've created a drip cake. So I'm just going to go ahead and roll out some of that pink icing, and once I know it's large enough, I'm just going to cut that bottom off as we did before, and bring my cake back in and cut off any excess. I can then just go ahead and trim off the excess at the top and also down the sides. And all I want to do is just use my modeling tool and just push those two parts of the pink icing together. Once you're happy with how that back is looking, I'm just going to go ahead and cover this top section. And I'm just going to bring back in the template that I used at the beginning just to cut the initial cake, and just go slightly bigger just because of that buttercream that we've added. I'm then just going to go down the sides and just round these off slightly, just so we haven't got so much of a blunt edge. I'm then going to bring my cake back in and pop a small amount of edible glue just along that top edge, and just pop that into place. I'm just going to trim that down and then just trim along this back edge so that the two pieces meet each other, and just go around the back of that cake just with my flexi smoothers, just to join those two pieces together. But one thing I am going to make sure is that these two edges just meet nicely at the corner. So here we have our cake completely covered in icing, and I'm just going to add a white section on the top just to drip all the way down the back. Okay, so I've got my white icing and I'm just going to roll this out. Now I want this to look like I've added white chocolate or white candy melts to the top of the cake, but I am going to make it a bit more of a cartoony drip just to exaggerate that slightly. I'm just going to bring back in the template that I used for the top, and I'm just going to cut out that top section. Now the bottom of this section is going to be the back of the cake, so all I'm going to do is just use that as a guide, and I just want to come down the cake a few inches, and I'm just going to create a wave. I'm then just going to go in with my fingers and just soften up those sides. Now I'm just going to put some little dents in just to make it look like it is dripping down. So I'm just going to bring my cake back in and just cover the top with some water just so that these will stick together. And I'm just going to pick up my white icing and just place that on the top, just making sure that the edge is lined up with the pink that is already on there. So I'm just going to pop a small amount of water just onto the back of that, just to glue that in place. Once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to go in first with my paddle smoothers. Now all I'm trying to do is just create a nice edge just around the side of that cake, and then just go in with my flexi smoothers just as I would if I was covering a full cake. So we just have this nice edge at the top, and we've just got the drips coming down the back. So the next thing that I'm going to do is just transfer this onto my board. Okay, so for my cake board, I've just got a 9-inch drum board. So all I'm going to do is just roll out some white icing, just because I want it to look like the cake is sitting on a plate. And I'm just going to brush on some water on top of that drum board, just so that the icing will stick. I'm then just going to trim off the excess with my pizza cutter, and just finish the board off with a light pink ribbon around the side, side just to match the cake. I can then transfer my cake onto my board. Okay, so now our cake is starting to take shape. I'm just going to finish off the top. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just create some swirls. So this just looks like white buttercream has just been made into little domes. So I'm just going to take a few balls of icing or fondant, which are around an inch in diameter, and I'm just going to roll these out and taper them on one side. And I'm going to make all three of these exactly the same length. All I'm going to do is just start with the larger end and just start winding them around themselves, just bringing that thinner end into the center, and they can just pop on the edge of that cake. Just stick those down with some edible glue. Now for the candle that's going to go in the center of the cake, I'm going to use two different colors of pink just to make it stripy. Now all I'm going to do is just roll these out into long sausages which are the same size. Now if you've got your plastic smoother, you can just use this to roll over the top, and this will just make sure that the sausage of icing is the same width all the way down. Now I'm just going to start winding these around themselves. So at the top, I'm just going to start twisting them together. I then want to start rolling these together so we get one striped length. And this is just going to make the candle. So I'm just going to trim this off so it's the right length. And I'm going to bring in my cocktail stick. Now all I want to do is just thread my cocktail stick through the center, bringing it out so that there's a small amount at the top and also at the bottom. I'm just going to bring in three different shades. So I've got a light red, a yellow and an orange, and just start combining them but stopping before they are all completely combined. I'm just going to roll that into a ball around 1 centimeter in diameter. I'm then just going to push on one side just to create a teardrop shape, and I'm just going to curve that end round so that we get this flame shape, and just thread that flame on the top. Now you can also just take some of that leftover icing that we used for the stem and just make some little drips. So the same kind of shape as we used for the flame, just a bit smaller. Stick those to the side of the candle. So you just want to make sure thin end is at the top, and just pop some edible glue just onto the bottom and just push that cocktail stick down. I'm then going to finish the cake off with some coloured sprinkles. Okay, so for the sprinkles, I've just got some different colour icing. So I've just got blue, some turquoise, some different shades of pink and a purple. And I'm also going to use this circle cutter. Now, this is just the end of a pen I've taken apart, which was the perfect size. So this one is about 5mm in diameter. Or you could use the end of a piping tip, or just create a small ball and just flatten it down. So all I'm going to do is just roll these out so that they're very thin, and just using the end of that pen, just push out some little circle pieces. And once these are all cut out in the different colours, I'm just going to use some edible glue and just stick these all over the white section of the cake. And also not forgetting to go all the way down the back. And once you're happy with how that is looking, the last thing that I'm going to do is just take some of that leftover fondant that we used for the vanilla sponge cake, and I'm just going to tear off small little crumbs and just stick these to the edge of the board, just so that it looks like some of that cake has crumbled off as the cake has been put down. So here we have the finished giant slice of birthday cake. I really hope you've enjoyed this video and will enjoy making your own giant slice of cake. If you have, then don't forget to give this video a like. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button, and this will just alert you every time a new video is uploaded. I'll also put a link in the description below to all my social media so you can follow me there and not miss a thing. So I'll see you soon. Bye.